I died on the way to meet Wenmu. The reason was, he posted an official announcement photo with his first love in his moments. But we were supposed to get married tomorrow. After death, I thought I would be free. Unexpectedly, my soul followed Wenmu and his first love day and night. AMU, do you think Hero will really come just because you posted a photo? In the dimly lit bar, I sat on the sofa, utterly bored, watching she snuggling bonelessly into my boyfriend's arms. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes misty, clearly very drunk. Wenmu attentively called the waiter to bring she a glass of honey water, nodding, "She will certainly come." Right, I'm already here. But none of you can see me. I waved my hand in front of Wenmu's face. He didn't notice at all, only focused on adjusting the temperature of she's honey water. It felt like I was pricked by countless needles. When I was with Wenmu, I was always the one responsible for taking care of the other. That's good. If she doesn't come, you'll be the one paying for this round. She leaned in closer. Wenmu didn't speak and was looking down at his phone. I was about to say, "Still, Wenmu understands me. He bet correctly, I did come." Because I saw Wenmu, who is always so aloof, post an update. The picture showed 2 glasses, and in the bottom right corner, she's distinctive tattooed hand appeared. I wanted to come and ask why. Why did her mere appearance turn my decade-long love into a joke? However, on the way here, a car accident cost me my life. A mysterious force drew me to Wenmu's side, wanting to see him one last time. Only then did I realize this was just a gamble for Wenmu to demonstrate his charm, testing whether I was truly at his beck and call. How pathetic. I looked at Wenmu, momentarily dazed. Wenmu and I had been entangled for nearly 10 years. It wasn't until this year that we decided to get married. A month before the wedding, she divorced and returned home. Wenmu wanted to postpone the wedding to take care of her, and I went crazy. "Wenmu, why does she need you, her ex-boyfriend, to take care of her just because she's suffering from domestic violence and depression? Doesn't she have family? Why do you have to postpone the wedding as soon as she comes back? You know very well that I've been waiting for 10 years. 10 years. A whole 10 years. How many 10 years does one have in a lifetime? You want to postpone the wedding? Over my dead body. Well, now I'm really dead." I circle around Wenmu while he lowers his head and fiddles with his phone. Curious, I wonder, with a beauty in his arms, what could he be looking at? I boldly move closer, only to see that his phone is open to our chat. The last message was me asking him where the bar was. Wenmu didn't say anything, just sent a location directly. It was less than half an hour's drive from our marital home. Now an hour has passed, and I still haven't arrived. Is he disappointed that I lost the bet and there's no news from me? I won't arrive. I will never arrive again. I have been ruined by you. My roaring voice was loud, but unfortunately, no one could hear it. After a few rounds of drinks, she was too drunk to stay conscious, and Wenmu staggered as he held her and walked back. When I saw that specific house number, I screamed to stop Wenmu.
Wenmu, no.
"You can't take her to our bridal chamber." I screamed my heart out, yet it still couldn't change anything. I watched helplessly as Wenmu placed the drunken Shi on the sofa and helped her wipe her hands with a warm towel. His movements were gentle, as if she was the treasure he held in his hands. I raised my hand numbly, placing it on my chest. Do the dead still feel heartache?
11YY coquettishly cuddled Wenmu.
Moo. I feel unwell. I want some hot soup. Wenmu chuckled silently, softly coaxing her to go sleep in the bedroom for a while. I watched Wenmu walk into the kitchen, skillfully chopping vegetables and lighting the stove. Shortly after, he came out carrying a bowl of hangover soup. He gently coaxed Shi. "Come on, have some soup, and your headache will go away." She refused to drink it on her own, so Wenmu simply picked up the spoon and fed her spoonful by spoonful. The atmosphere was ambiguously cozy, and my heart felt like it was being clenched, making it difficult to breathe. Memories overlapped with the scene before me. That year, Wenmu's family suddenly faced a crisis, and she soon married and went abroad. Wenmu fell into a slump, drinking heavily, fighting, self-harming. I was the one who stayed with him, enduring that dark period together. Later, when he started his business, I accompanied him as we navigated social gatherings over drinks. Having seen me suffer from headaches after getting drunk many times, Wenmu was so pained that he learned to make this hangover soup himself. Perhaps those who are favored have nothing to fear. I thought Wenmu loved me, so I tugged on his sleeve and acted coyly. "In the future, will you only cook for me?" He laughed softly. "Okay, I won't cook for anyone else. Only for you." The sweet and sour taste accompanied by Wenmu's gentle laughter reached deep into my heart. But now, It turns out that the favored one isn't me. Shi is the one who is all of Wenmu's sweetness. I can't stand seeing Wenmu being good to others, especially Shi. Instinct drove me to want to escape from here. I desperately ran towards the door, but each time I couldn't get far before an inexplicable force pulled me back. A searing pain spread throughout my entire body. After several attempts, I was utterly exhausted and finally realized that I couldn't leave Wenmu. I looked at the two of them blankly. My boyfriend was carefully tending to the treasure he had reclaimed. Amu, I've never forgotten you all these years. I'm divorced now. Can we be together? Shi's confession was very direct. Wenmu stared at her eyes for a few seconds, and I held my breath along with him. Me too. His response was full of deep affection. Shi immediately smiled, but suddenly her smile faded a bit, as if she thought of something else. What about Kuro? After all, she's been with you for so many years. Wenmu's body stiffened as he held her, his expression complicated. Shi sensed his change and pressed her lips together, saying nothing. The ambiguous atmosphere vanished without a trace. You only feel gratitude and guilt towards her. You don't love her, do you? Shi urgently confirmed. Just as Shi was about to speak again, Wenmu lowered his head and kissed her. She wrapped her arms around Wenmu's neck, her face full of shyness, and she let out soft breaths. I couldn't help but want to throw up, my eyes welling up with physiological tears. Wenmu, how dare you? In our wedding room, with another woman, doing such disgusting things. I felt like my soul was about to be torn apart from the pain. The home that I had carefully set up with great anticipation was tainted just like that. Shi, in a state of confusion and emotion, reached out to unbutton Wenmu's shirt. Just as they were about to proceed to the next step, they were interrupted by a cat's meow. It was Wenwen, the cat that Wenmu and I had raised for many years. At that time, we had just started our business and didn't have much money. We lived in a dilapidated tube-shaped apartment where rats and insects thrived. I picked up this stray cat and brought it home. Not long after arriving home, it became an expert at catching rats and insects. One winter, it was so cold that Wenmu and I lit a fire basin and almost got poisoned. The cat knocked over the fire basin and howled, bringing the neighbors to save us. If I had known I would die a tragic death, I should have taken it away. Steady circled around Wenmu, meowing. Shi was unhappy that a cat had ruined her plans and complained to Wenmu. Wenmu, don't you know I'm allergic to cat fur? Get rid of it tomorrow. Wenmu didn't say anything, he just locked Steady in a cage. After Steady's disturbance, Shi wanted to continue what she was doing, but Wenmu lost interest. He urged Shi to go to bed. Wenmu stood on the balcony for more than half an hour, constantly locking and unlocking his phone. The light from the screen made his face look even more somber. Perhaps hearing Steady's hoarse cries, afraid of disturbing the people inside, he went back inside and silently opened the cage. After gaining freedom, Steady searched around the house and finally fixed its gaze in my direction.
On.
Steady can see me. This discovery made me cry and laugh at the same time. I waved at it, and it steadily ran over to nuzzle against me. Realizing it couldn't reach, it was slightly puzzled but quickly resumed its enthusiastic attempt. Even though the kitten can't speak, it understands everything. Ignoring the kitten's strange behavior, Wenmu opened the fridge and took out the beef sauce I had made but didn't finish. I watched him expressionlessly as he boiled the noodles, rinsed them in cold water, added the sauce, and stirred. Lastly, he garnished it with chopped green onions and brought it to the table. Just like the bowl of noodles I used to serve him years ago. He ate seriously, staring at the kitten as it jumped around, and for once, there was a hint of a smile on his face. Was Wenmu thinking of me? Or was he reminiscing about my grandmother? Beef sauce noodles were my grandmother's specialty. After Wenmu's family faced hardships, my grandmother often invited him over for meals. Before she passed away, she held his hand, trembling, and entrusted me to his care. I hugged Wenmu and cried uncontrollably. Wenmu, from now on I only have you. Only you. Wenmu, with reddened eyes, held me tightly. I won't leave you. We will always be together. Since that day, Wenmu and I have depended on each other for survival. Therefore, this dish has been given a special meaning. Whenever we quarrel, I would cook him a bowl of mixed noodles. After eating, we would calm down and reconcile with each other. Just like when Grandma used to coax the two of us when we were upset. After sharing a meal, no more anger. Grandma, look. So many years have passed. I lost you, and I lost Wenmu as well. Both he and I were lost in our thoughts, not even noticing when she sat down at the dining table. What are you eating? It smells so strange. She picked up the jar and looked at it. Beef sauce mixed noodles, Wenmu answered mechanically. Oh, so this was your secret weapon for tacit reconciliation? Quite funny. Wenmu stopped his actions and was slightly stunned. It is quite funny. When I heard it, it was like a thunderbolt striking my mind. This was a secret shared only between Wenmu and me. While I secretly rejoiced, he had already shared it with others. He even trampled it with others. I shook my head with tears in my eyes, feeling undeserving for myself and for my grandmother. The glass bottle fell to the ground with a piercing sound, frightening Wenwen. I'm sorry, Amu, I accidentally let it slip. Shi apologized hastily. In the future, I'll buy you another bottle. I'll make more delicious food for you. Wenmu's knuckles turned slightly white, yet he said nonchalantly, It's okay, Kuro will make more once she returns anyway. His words were like knives cutting into me again and again. Covered in blood, the pain was unbearable. What I valued the most in his eyes became a dismissive, it's okay. It will never be made again. Everyone who knew how to make this dish is dead. The two remained silent until a sudden ringing interrupted the quietness between them. Hello, Wenmu. Have you seen Kuro? It was my good friend Jean Nan.
No.
Tell them to stop playing tricks. Wenmu said impatiently. He hung up the phone after he finished speaking. I used to employ this tactic when I argued with Wenmu, just hoping he would worry and apologize to me first. Now it has become Wenmu's excuse. The phone rang several times in a row. Wenmu looked at my incoming call, allowing Shi to hang up instead. Wenmu hesitated to speak, ultimately saying nothing. After that night, Shi openly stayed in my marital home. Is this just my imagination? After breaking the beef sauce, Wenmu's attitude towards Shi noticeably changed. He began to stare at my photos in a daze. He personally took care of Wenwen's daily needs, ignoring Shi's suggestion to send the cat away. He smiled when he saw my plants and flowers and unconsciously cooked food to my taste. Even hearing my name caused him to be lost in thought for a long time. Whether intentional or not, every time Shi cleaned, I found fewer and fewer of my belongings remaining. But the things that were packed the previous day, Wenmu would put back exactly as they were the next day. Until one time, Shi threw my cat away. Wenmu finally lost his temper at her, which was rare. Don't touch these things again. Shi broke down. Amu, have you really fallen in love with Kuro? You know I'm allergic to cat fur, so why do you still keep it? Wenmu remained silent, closing the door properly, and then stared silently at his phone. It was our commemorative photo. Shi beside him turned pale. Not only Shi, but I also understood. After I left, Wenmu started to slowly confront his inner feelings. The Cold War had already lasted for half a month, and Wenmu still hadn't seen me. He was panicking. He frantically called my phone, but no one answered. He tried to contact Jean Nan, but she avoided him and instead cursed him out. Wenmu, you bastard. You actually abandoned Kuro for another woman. Can you justify the 10 years Kuro has invested in you? What about Grandma? Get lost. I won't let you see her. She thinks you're filthy. You will never see her again. Go fly off into the sunset with your beloved White Lotus. Jean Nan's eyes were red, as if she had been crying. If it weren't for Jean Chuan holding her back, Jean Nan would have cursed Wenmu's ancestors for 18 generations. Jean Chuan stayed with Wenmu on the dark street, smoking a cigarette. Don't blame my sister. She's been going through something recently. Her temper has been bad. Okay. Wenmu exhaled a puff of smoke. What about
Shi?
We've all seen how much Kuro has done for you over the years. Kuro won't find out. Shi and I are just ordinary friends. I'll settle Shi before Kuro comes back. Wenmu flicked the ash from his cigarette. The light at his fingertips glowed a crimson red. Brother, let me advise you. Some mistakes are irrevocable, even in death. Take care of yourself. Jean Chuan patted his shoulder and turned to leave. When Wenmu extinguished the last cigarette, I heard him contact Shi's parents. He was relieved. When he got home, he opened the door to find Shi had prepared a meal for him and even made beef sauce. I know you have her in your heart. I shouldn't interfere with your life, but AMU, before she comes back, can I stay with you as a friend for a few more days? She wore my apron, hugged my fiancé, her face full of tears, looking pitiful. Her voice was hoarse, heart-wrenching. Wenmu said nothing and did not push her away. Faced with his former beloved, he ultimately softened his heart. Stop crying. Your face is all tear-stained. Wenmu gently spoke, tenderly wiping away her tears with his thumb. I must really love Wenmu deeply to be disappointed with him again and again. I spent 10 years just to stay by Wenmu's side. Some people just stand there and cry a little and they win. I am too tired to struggle anymore. Even breathing is painful. Wenwen seemed to sense something and barked nervously. I can't die, nor can I escape. I can only watch them interact, like friends with indifference. Until Jin Chuan called him. Wenmu, Kuro is dead. Countless times I imagined Wenmu's expression upon learning of my death. Now I finally got my wish. Jin Chuan, what kind of joke is this? Wenmu was slightly stunned, then burst into laughter. It's true. I'm not lying to you. Shut up. The man reprimanded harshly. She drove out late last week and had an accident at the Yongjin Road intersection, dying on the spot. My sister went to identify the body. Yongjin Road is the only way to that bar. Wenmu's lips gradually turned pale, and the hair on his body stood on end with tension. Did you receive a call when the hospital notified you? She has been missing for half a month. Didn't you look for her? With each question Jin Chuan asked, Wenmu took a step back. Until finally, he couldn't keep his balance. He kept mumbling, "Impossible, it's not true. What's wrong, Mu?" Seeing this, she spoke considerately, reaching out to support him. So you chose to be with that woman after all. Jin Chuan seemed to hear the commotion here. Wenmu, you make me sick. I should have listened to my sister. You have no right to see her. Jin Chuan hung up after speaking. I didn't. Wenmu pushed Shi away, defending himself loudly. Wenmu sat slumped on the ground all night, ignoring Shi's attempts to
Console him.
Only at daybreak did he suddenly stand up, barefoot, and stagger out. I followed him to the memorial service. Jin Nen cried and pushed him, and Wenmu did not dodge, taking the beating solidly. Wenmu, how dare you show up? It was all because of you that she died. I advised her not to go, but she wouldn't listen. She wants to ask you face to face. What exactly does your 10-year relationship mean? I should have stopped her. It's all my fault. I looked at the person sitting on the ground sobbing to the point of fainting, wanting to hug her. But it was in vain. Wenmu pulled off Jin Nan's hand, leaned over the coffin, and looked at the person inside. I also leaned in to look. The damaged body was stitched together, barely recognizable as human form. Wenmu reached out to touch me, but seeing the scars, he hesitated and pulled back. He crouched on the ground, starting to mutter to himself. Please don't scare me, I know I was wrong. Please respond to me. Wenmu spoke haltingly. I forgot to tell you, the first time I saw you, I noticed you. Your eyes were so bright, I wondered how there could be such a cute girl. Those years when you followed me, your sweet voice calling Wenmu, I felt so happy then. In the end, she appeared. He covered his face, bursting into tears, his voice choked with emotion. I truly wanted to marry you. I love you. I promised Grandma I would take care of you for a lifetime. I'm sorry. I'm such a jerk. You can hit me. You can kill me. Just please don't lie here. As he spoke, Wenmu slapped himself repeatedly. Even the bright red blood at the corner of his mouth didn't bother him. Why did it end up like this? Why? Why indeed? I want to know too. I had a rough first half of my life and was naturally indifferent. It was only after meeting Wenmu that I felt light within me. And so I chased after him for many years. Later, my moon dimmed. So I became my own little sun, desperately trying to be good to him and illuminate him. Besides Grandma, all my tenderness was given to Wenmu. I'll never be that good to anyone else again. Goro, wake up. Little Ro, Wenwen is still at home waiting for you. No one answered him. The voice was pitiful and sad. It turns out that when a person reaches the extreme of pain, they can truly shed crimson tears. He clung to the coffin, refusing to allow the cremation, crying until he was hoarse. Only after Jin Chuan dragged him away with force did the process proceed smoothly. It was not until a small box emerged that he truly understood. I really am dead. Before others could react, Wenmu snatched away my ashes. He took me home, curiously circling the box steadily, then leapt towards me with bounding steps. Maybe because the body is gone, my soul feels unusually exhausted. Wenmu locked high, himself in the room, while I curled up drowsily in a corner, falling asleep. In a daze, I heard the urgent knocking of Shi at the door. Mu, open the door, please, eat something. If you keep destroying yourself like this, she would be heartbroken if she knew. I looked at him. It's only been 2 days, and Wenmu has already grown a few strands of white hair. His beard was unkempt, his eyes vacant. He seemed to have aged several years. Wenmu opened the door and gestured for her to be quiet.
Sure.
You're disturbing Kuro's sleep. Shi's eyes widened with a look of horror. Why haven't you left yet? If she sees you here, she'll be angry. She stammered. Hurry up and leave go. Wenmu anxiously pushed him to the ground. He shattered the carefully prepared meal into a mess. Shi looked distressed, staring at him in disbelief that Wenmu would treat her like this. Get lost. Wenmu became impatient, as she still hadn't left. The person on the ground couldn't accept it, covering their face and running away in tears. Then Wenmu was left alone again. When Jean Nan found Wenmu, he was working on the unfinished puzzle. You don't deserve it. Jean Nan reached out and knocked over the things on the table. Shi's ex-husband came back and beat her into the hospital. Didn't you love her? Take care of her already. Stop pretending to be so affectionate here. He didn't mind, shivering as he picked up the fragments from the ground and confided in Jean Nan. I was the one who caused her death. If I hadn't sent that photo, she wouldn't have come. If she hadn't come, she wouldn't have died. We would still have a chance. She even brought another woman into our marital home. I deserve to die. If I had answered the phone that night, might there have been time to see her one last time? I know I was wrong. I'd rather it was me who died. Wenmu's voice carried the weight of his bleeding heart. Jean Nan listened with indifference, her tone cold. Those who betray sincerity should swallow 10,000 silver needles. Even if you die, how could you have the face to ask for forgiveness from Ku Ro and Grandma? Jean Nan took away my ashes and chose to bury them for peace. Wenmu had no right to attend the funeral. He set up a memorial tablet for me so he would have a place to offer incense and worship. In the Hall of Longevity, the Buddha's light shines everywhere, but I couldn't enter and surprisingly found myself separated from him. When he came out, he bowed to the master, his eyes obscure and unreadable, still holding a scroll of parchment in his hand. I took the opportunity to sneak a look when he wasn't paying attention. It was written that if you obtain clothing and hair stained with the blood of the deceased, drip your own heart blood on them and perform a secret ritual, you will be able to see the person so.
Ulica.
It also included methods on how to protect the soul. My heart felt ashen, wishing to get as far away from him as possible. Why would I want him to see that I've been by his side all along? In moments of utter despair, people tend to believe in things that are completely unfounded. He began frequently confining himself, and each time he emerged, he had more wounds. Even the amulet on his chest was stained red. Speaking of this amulet, it's somewhat laughable. Back then, Wenmu had just started his career and offended quite a few people. He was often followed by strangers in the middle of the night. I was scared, so I hurried up the mountain at night to seek out a sage and obtain an amulet for protection. The sage said, if the heart is sincere, the amulet will be effective. So, I kowtowed with each step all the way to the entrance of the great hall. I dripped blood, wrapped it with hair, and pleaded with a master to bless it, hoping to ensure Wenmu's lifelong safety and my own smooth life. Now that I think about it, sincerity doesn't necessarily guarantee success. Otherwise, after sincerely loving Wenmu for 10 years, how could I end up like this? So, it is impossible for Wenmu to succeed. Wenmu tried to make beef sauce, but despite the blisters and burns on his hands, he still couldn't get it right. Kuro, if only you were here. Wenmu looked in my direction, as if reminiscing about me. Even if I were here, I wouldn't make it for you. Wenmu was in a daze for a long time, tears as big as beans dripped onto the noodles, only to be swallowed by him in big bites. He started going out frequently, even carrying an umbrella on sunny days, ignoring others' stares. I couldn't stay far from him, so I had to follow. We went to the small alley, where we used to eat often. The lady boss greeted us warmly. You two must be getting married soon, right? Where's your partner? I haven't seen her for a long time. I really miss her. Wenmu leaned towards my side and said, I miss her a lot too. He went out of his way to get a wedding dress, took the ring, and bought wedding decorations. He even handed out candies to the people around. He took photos at his old school and paid respects at his grandmother's grave. On the way back, Wenmu bought my favorite flowers and asked me if they were beautiful. I remained silent. Downstairs, I encountered Shi waiting desperately. He could also carelessly pretend not to see her. I pursed my lips, feeling a sudden sense of melancholy. No one emerges unscathed from this vortex of emotions. From the beginning to the end, it's always been you I love. Wenmu suddenly spoke, startling me. When I got home, Wenwen didn't come to greet me. It lay quietly on the floor, so small. I couldn't pick it up. A dense wave of pain spread through my heart. Wenmu sat down, leaning against the wall, with the hallway light, casting his shadow long. He looked lonely and miserable. Wenmu placed its fur in front of my spirit tablet to keep me company. He grew thinner and thinner, tirelessly speaking to the air every day. I found it rather meaningless, sat by the window for a long time, and suddenly jumped out. Wenmu, who was beside me, screamed and rushed towards me, trying to save me. But he forgot, I am now just a light and weightless soul. At this moment, I finally understood Wenmu's strange actions, his intentional and unintentional glances. So, the secret technique was real. He succeeded. My eyes met his. You can see me, right, Wenmu? I spoke calmly. Yes, Wenmu responded, his voice not sounding pleasant. Wenmu, please let me go. He suddenly looked up, his gaze shocked and complex. I know everything now. When you delivered Wenwen, I risked my soul dissipating to listen to a bit of it. There's a trace of my essence left on that amulet. That's how I've been able to remain as a soul by your side for so long. I've been floating for too long. I can't hold on anymore. There's nothing here worth lingering for. Please let me go where I belong. Wenmu was utterly despondent, his voice hoarse, and I could even see tears in his eyes. Kuro, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. Can you forgive me? Even if you are a ghost, I want to be with you. I really love you. I laughed in anger. You didn't mean to send the photo to provoke me, causing me to end up in the underworld? You didn't mean to bring another woman into our marriage room to do those disgusting things? Did you enjoy the hangover soup that day? No one's making that beef sauce anymore after you ate it. When you trampled on our 10 years of love, can you dare say you loved me? Wenmu's hands were clenched so tightly it seemed his nails would pierce his palms in the next second. His eyes were filled with pain and regret. I was miserable in life and don't want to be restless after death. I stepped aside. I'll die, and once I'm dead, I can be with you. Wenmu shouted miserably. Wenmu, you have no right. Don't come and tarnish my next life. Kuro, I beg you, even if you hate me, don't leave me. He knelt on the ground and pleaded. I don't love you anymore. Both love and hate require feelings, and I have long been disappointed in you, indifferent to love or hate. It's not like that, it's not, he shook his head and fled. Every moment that followed, my soul was struck, filled with unbearable suffering. Wenmu looked at me in pain, desperately pinching his own arm, shivering helplessly. He howled silently, like a young beast trapped in a cage. Finally, as if making a major decision, he stood up like a walking corpse and burned the amulet. The last bit of human connection between Wenmu and me was gone. The moment the flame ignited, the shackles on my bod suddenly lightened, and my body slowly began to fade. In the interplay of light and shadow, I saw Wenmu's hollow gaze, wanting to grasp something, but nothing could be caught. Grandma, Wenwen, Kuro is coming to find you. In the next life, I pray